"This prescription looks completely fake. I can't fill this. And frankly, I'm not sure I believe you even saw a real doctor." The young pharmacist Kevin sneered, his voice loud enough for other customers in the quiet pharmacy to turn and stare. Elias Thorne stood patiently at the counter. He was an older man, his face etched with lines that spoke of a life lived through hardship and quiet dignity. He wore simple, clean clothes, a plaid shirt, comfortable trousers. Nothing about him screamed for attention. He looked like any other grandfather. He had come to this pharmacy, a bright, modern place filled with the scent of antiseptic and faint perfume, for a simple reason: he needed his heart medication. The prescription was new, from a specialist at the Veterans Affairs Hospital, a doctor who understood the strains his old heart had been under. Elias clutched the small, folded paper a little tighter. It was essential. Without it, his days would become much harder, his breath shorter, the ache in his chest a constant companion. Inside his worn leather wallet, nestled beside a faded picture of his late wife, was a small, laminated card. It held a special phone number, one he hoped he'd never have to use. It was a lifeline, a promise from people who knew what he had once done, who he truly was beneath the unassuming exterior. He rarely thought about those days, but sometimes, in moments like this, the memories flickered. If you believe veterans deserve respect, not suspicion, type honor below. Kevin, the pharmacist, tapped the prescription paper with a dismissive finger. He was young, barely out of his 20s, with an air of someone who believed he knew everything. He wore his white coat like a suit of armor, a symbol of authority he clearly enjoyed wielding. "Look, sir," Kevin said, his tone dripping with false politeness that felt sharper than open rudeness. "We have procedures here. This doesn't meet our standards. The doctor's signature looks off. The letterhead, it's just not right." Elias took a slow breath. He needed to stay calm. He had faced far worse than an officious young man with an inflated sense of importance. "It is a legitimate prescription," Elias said, his voice quiet but firm. "It is from Dr. Ramirez at the VA hospital. She is a very good doctor." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his VA identification card, placing it on the counter. "Here is my identification. You can call the hospital if you need to verify." Kevin barely glanced at the card. "Anyone can get one of those printed up, and I don't have time to call around verifying every suspicious piece of paper that comes through here. We're busy." He gestured to the small line forming behind Elias. Then, with a theatrical sigh, Kevin did something that made Elias's blood run cold. He picked up the prescription slip, the one Elias desperately needed, and tore it in half. Then in half again. "There," Kevin said, dropping the small pieces into the trash bin behind the counter. "Problem solved. Now, if you'll excuse me, next customer, please." Elias felt a familiar ache, not just in his chest, but in his spirit. It was the ache of being dismissed, of being judged unfairly. He had served his country for 30 years, seen things no person should ever see, done things that still visited him in his dreams. He had worn a uniform with pride, believing he was protecting the very freedoms that allowed this young man to stand here and treat him with such disdain. He felt the eyes of the other customers on him. He saw pity in some, impatience in others. Embarrassment washed over him, hot and uncomfortable. But beneath it, a cold anger began to stir. Not a loud, raging anger, but the quiet, steady kind that had seen him through impossible situations. He could walk away. He could go to another pharmacy, try to explain his situation all over again, hope for a more understanding ear. Or he could try to speak to a manager, though Kevin seemed like the type to make that difficult as well. Then he remembered. He remembered the kind face of General Wallace, a man he had served under, a man who had shaken his hand with tears in his eyes after a particularly brutal campaign. "If you ever need anything, Thorne," the general had said, pressing a small card into his hand, "anything at all, you call this number. The VA has people, good people, who look out for ours." Elias had kept that card, tucked away with other mementos of a life he seldom spoke about. He hadn't wanted to ever be a bother. But this felt different. This wasn't just about him. It was about respect. It was about the way people who had given so much were sometimes treated as if they were nothing. "Excuse me," Elias said, his voice still calm. He stepped away from the counter, ignoring Kevin's impatient huff. He moved to a quieter corner of the pharmacy, near a display of vitamins. He pulled out his old wallet. His fingers, a little stiff with age, fumbled slightly as he retrieved the laminated card. The number was printed clearly. He took out his simple, old-fashioned cell phone and carefully dialed. The phone rang only twice before a calm, professional voice answered. "Veterans Advocacy Helpline, this is Sarah speaking. How can I help you?" Elias cleared his throat. "My name is Elias Thorne," he began, his voice low. "I am a veteran. I am at the MedFirst Pharmacy on Elm Street. The pharmacist here has refused to fill my heart medication. He said the prescription was fake, and he tore it up. He stated the facts simply, without emotion, just as he had been trained to deliver reports under pressure." There was a short pause on the other end. Then Sarah's voice came back, still calm, but with a new edge of seriousness. "Mr. Thorne, can you please spell the name of the pharmacy and confirm the address, and the name of the pharmacist, if you have it?" Elias provided the information. He heard the click of a keyboard in the background. "Mr. Thorne," Sarah said, "I need you to stay where you are, if possible. Help is on the way. Someone will be there within 15 minutes. Can you do that?" "Yes," Elias said. "I can wait." "Thank you for your service, Mr. Thorne, and thank you for calling. We will sort this out." The line clicked off. Elias put his phone back in his pocket. 10, maybe 15 minutes. He leaned against the vitamin display, a silent, unassuming figure. Kevin, at the counter, glanced over at him, a smirk playing on his lips. He probably thought Elias was calling a friend to complain, or maybe trying to find another doctor. The young pharmacist had no idea what he had just set in motion. The pharmacy returned to its usual hum. Prescriptions were filled. Customers came and went. Elias waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The large clock on the wall ticked with agonizing slowness. He watched the second hand sweep around, each tick a small drumbeat of anticipation. 5 minutes passed. Elias remained still, his gaze distant. He thought of his wife, how she would have handled this. She would have been furious, a lioness protecting her own. He missed her fire. 8 minutes. He saw Kevin glance at him again, then whisper something to a colleague, who also looked over and snickered. They thought he was just some old man, easily dismissed. Have you ever been judged unfairly by someone who didn't know your story? Type, "I have," if this has happened to you. Then, exactly 10 minutes after Elias had ended his call, the pharmacy doors swished open with a sense of purpose. A woman strode in. She was in her late 40s, dressed in a sharply tailored navy blue suit. She carried a leather briefcase, and her expression was one of no-nonsense efficiency. Her eyes scanned the pharmacy, quickly landing on Elias. Behind her, a younger man, also professionally dressed, followed closely, carrying a tablet. The woman walked directly towards Elias. Kevin, seeing her approach, straightened up, his smirk faltering. There was an air of authority about this woman that demanded attention. "Mr. Elias Thorne?" she asked, her voice clear and carrying, though not loud. Elias nodded. "Yes, that's me." "I am Annalise Albright," she said, offering a firm handshake. "I'm a senior representative from the Department of Veterans Affairs." "This is my associate, Mr. Davies." The young man nodded politely. "We received your call. I understand you're having some trouble getting your prescription filled." Kevin, who had been watching this exchange with growing alarm, suddenly hurried over. "Excuse me, ma'am, can I help you? Is there a problem?" His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced by a nervous uncertainty. Ms. Albright turned her cool gaze upon him. "Are you the pharmacist who refused to fill Mr. Thorne's prescription?" Kevin swallowed. Yes, that was me. But the prescription, it looked irregular, and—" "Irregular?" Ms. Albright interrupted, her voice like chipped ice. "Mr. Thorne is a patient of Dr. Ramirez, a leading cardiologist at the VA National Medical Center. His prescription for rosuvastatin is not only legitimate, it is vital for his ongoing health. He is a decorated veteran of the United States Armed Forces." Kevin's face began to pale. "Decorated?" he stammered. "But he just—" Ms. Albright didn't raise her voice, but her words cut through the pharmacy's quiet hum. "Mr. Elias Thorne served this country for 30 years. He is a recipient of the Silver Star for gallantry in action, 2 Bronze Stars for valor, and 3 Purple Hearts for wounds received in combat. among other commendations too numerous to list right now. She paused, letting her words sink in. The other customers had fallen silent, all eyes on the scene unfolding at the pharmacy counter. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken shock and dawning realization. "He tore it up," Elias said quietly, gesturing towards the trash bin. "My prescription." Ms. Albright's eyes narrowed as she looked at Kevin, then at the bin. "You tore up a valid, life-sustaining prescription for a veteran under VA care." Kevin looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. I thought I made a mistake, a terrible mistake." His voice was barely a whisper. Just then, another figure hurried from the back office. A portly man in a slightly less crisp white coat, with a name badge identifying him as David Green, pharmacy manager. He looked flustered. "What seems to be the trouble here?" I heard raised voices. Ms. Albright addressed him directly. "Mr. Green, I am Annalise Albright from the Department of Veterans Affairs. Your pharmacist, Kevin," she gestured, "has refused essential medication to Master Sergeant Alias Thorne, retired, a highly decorated veteran, and then proceeded to destroy his legal prescription." The manager's jaw dropped. He looked from Ms. Albright to Kevin, then to Elias, his eyes widening as he truly saw the older man for the first time, not just an elderly customer, but someone of significance. "Master Sergeant Thorne?" He breathed, a note of awe in his voice. "Oh, my goodness. Kevin, what have you done?" Kevin looked down at his shoes, his face burning with shame. "First," Ms. Albright stated, "Master Sergeant Thorne will receive an immediate, full, and sincere apology. Second, his prescription will be filled without any further delay or question, and it will be provided to him free of charge today. Third, I will need your corporate contact information, Mr. Green, because this pharmacy and your chain will be hearing from us formally about this incident and the need for urgent retraining on handling VA prescriptions and treating our veterans with the respect they are due." Mr. Green rushed towards Elias. "Master Sergeant Thorne, sir, I am so sorry. There are no words. This is inexcusable. Please, accept my deepest apologies on behalf of our entire pharmacy. Kevin is new, but that is no excuse for this appalling lack of judgment and respect." He turned to the now trembling Kevin. "Kevin, you will apologize to Master Sergeant Thorne immediately, and then you will report to my office. Your actions today were unacceptable." Kevin mumbled a hasty, shame-faced apology to Elias, his eyes still downcast. "Furthermore," Miss Albright continued, her tone unwavering, "Master Sergeant Thorne will receive all his future prescriptions from this pharmacy chain free of charge, for life, should he choose to continue using your services. And I expect a written policy change regarding veteran care to be circulated to all your branches within 30 days, with a copy sent to my office." The manager nodded vigorously. "Yes, of course. Absolutely. Anything. We will make this right, Master Sergeant Thorne. We will get your medication for you right now." He personally hurried behind the counter, pushing a bewildered-looking pharmacy technician aside, and began to process Elias's needs himself, after getting the details from Ms. Albright's associate who had it on his tablet. Within minutes, Elias had his medication, along with a bag filled with several other pharmacy items the manager insisted he take, as a small token of our profound regret. Ms. Albright ensured all agreements were understood before turning back to Elias. "Master Sergeant Thorne, are you satisfied with this resolution?" Elias looked at the manager, who was still profusely apologizing, and at Kevin, who looked thoroughly chastened. He nodded slowly. "Yes. Thank you, Ms. Albright. Thank you for coming so quickly." "It's our duty and our honor, sir," she replied softly. "The VA is here for you, always." As Elias left the pharmacy, medication in hand, Ms. Albright and her associate stayed behind to finalize details with the manager. The other customers watched him go, their expressions a mixture of respect and shame for their earlier indifference. One elderly woman whispered, "God bless him," as he passed. The story of what happened at the MedFirst pharmacy that day did spread. The manager, true to his word, implemented new training immediately. Kevin was, according to pharmacy rumor, put on probation and assigned to extensive customer service and sensitivity training, specifically focused on veterans. Elias Thorne continued his quiet life. He didn't seek recognition, and he didn't brag about what happened. He was simply glad that a wrong had been righted, and that perhaps, in some small way, his experience might prevent another veteran from being treated with such disrespect. He felt a quiet pride, not in the fuss that was made, but in the fact that the system, the brotherhood he had belonged to for so long, had come through for him. This story reminds us that heroes often walk among us, unseen and unassuming. It teaches us the importance of looking beyond appearances and treating everyone with dignity and respect, especially those who have sacrificed so much for others. Never judge a book by its cover, because you never know the incredible story hidden within its pages. If you believe that all veterans deserve our utmost respect and gratitude, please type "Respect Our Vets" in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that uplift and inspire. Because every act of kindness, every moment of justice, makes the world a better place.